Emily sat quietly in the small kitchen of her home, the morning sunlight spilling through the half-open blinds. The smell of coffee filled the room, yet she couldn't bring herself to touch the cup in front of her. Her gaze kept drifting to the empty chair across from her, the one James usually occupied each morning. He wasn't gone, not in the sense that she could feel, but something had changed in the past few months. A subtle distance had crept between them, almost imperceptible at first. But now it lingered in every glance, every unspoken word. She reached for her journal, running her fingers over the smooth cover. Writing had always been her way to understand the swirl of emotions inside her, but today even the words seemed heavy. Emily scribbled her thoughts hastily. I love him more than anything, but lately it feels like I'm loving him from a distance, even when he's right here. Does he feel the same way? The sound of the front door opening startled her, and she looked up. James stepped in, shaking off the morning chill, his eyes catching hers for a brief moment before looking away. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes the way it used to. Morning, he said softly, hanging his coat. Coffee. Emily nodded, forcing her lips into a small smile. Yeah, thanks. She watched as he moved to pour himself a cup, the steam curling around him in the sunlight, and for a moment, she let herself remember the early days of their marriage. The days when his laughter could fill an entire room, and she felt like the most important person in the world. Back then, the thought of him leaving Evan for a minute would have been unthinkable. But now, there was a quiet space between them, a kind of gentle emptiness. It wasn't that they argued or fought. It wasn't that love had faded. No, it was something quieter, something subtler, wish unspoken, a longing neither dared voice. It had hung in the air like a fragile thread. Emily's mind wandered as she prepared breakfast, slicing fresh fruit and arranging it neatly on a plate. She watched the sunlight catch the edges of the kitchen table, imagining it lighting up his face the way it once did. There was something about this morning that felt different, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She had a feeling, an unshakable one, that today, something significant might finally surface. James took his first sip of coffee, closing his eyes for a moment. Emily noticed the way his fingers trembled slightly as he held the cup. There was a tension there, a restlessness she hadn't seen in a long time. Her heart tightened. Emily? James began, his voice quieter than usual, hesitant almost. She froze, knife in hand. Sensing that this wasn't going to be a casual morning conversation. Yes, she asked gently, trying not to let the worry creep into her tone. He took a deep breath, setting the cup down on the table. I have a wish. Something I've wanted for a long time, but I've never said it out loud. Emily felt a flutter in her chest, a mix of curiosity and hope. There was something about the way he spoke, so vulnerable and honest, that made her lean in instinctively. A wish. She echoed softly. You can tell me anything, James. He looked at her, his eyes searching hers as if to measure whether she truly understood. I want a day. Just one day where it's only us. No distractions, no work, no responsibilities. I want to remember us before everything else took over. Emily's heart swelled. She knew the pressures of life had weighed heavily on them both. Work, errands, family obligations, they had all crept in slowly, filling their days with noise and leaving precious little room for the quiet moments that had once defined their love. And now, he was asking for something so simple, so profoundly intimate in its innocence, that she felt tears prick her eyes. Of course, Kay, she whispered, almost instinctively. We can do that. We'll make it happen. James blinked, surprised by the ease of her response. A small, relieved smile appeared on his lips, softening the tension she had noticed earlier. For a moment, they just sat together in silence, listening to the morning hum of the world outside, the distant chatter of neighbors, the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze, the comforting tick of the kitchen clock. Emily felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. A day like this could change everything. It could bring them closer, remind them of the love that had never truly faded. Or it could reveal cracks she hadn't noticed before. Either way, she knew this was a turning point. She could feel it in the way her heart raced, In the quiet anticipation that filled the room, she reached across the table and took his hand. "We'll make it special, James, I promise. Whatever you want, we'll do it together." James squeezed her hand gently, a silent acknowledgement that this was more than just a wish. It was a moment of trust, a chance to rekindle something both of them had quietly been longing for. And as they sat there, the morning light bathing them in warmth, Emily realized that this simple request a day just for them was about to change their lives in ways neither of them could yet imagine. Outside, the world went on as usual, but inside that small kitchen, a new story was beginning, a story of hope, of love, and of a wish that might finally bring them both a connection. They had been silently craving as the sunlight stretched higher into the sky. Emily and James stepped outside, leaving the small kitchen behind. The crisp morning air carried with it the faint scent of blooming flowers from the neighborhood gardens. Emily watched James as he walked beside her, noticing the familiar lines around his eyes, the slight crease of his brow when he was deep in thought. In that moment, she felt the familiar pull of memory, a quiet nostalgia that seemed to settle around them like a soft, invisible blanket. It had been years since they first met. Emily remembered it vividly. The small cafe on a rainy afternoon, the way James had offered her a seat when she had none, the gentle kindness in his voice that immediately made her feel at ease. There was an unspoken connection from the start, a sense that somehow, against all odds, they had found something rare, something worth holding on to. Their early days had been filled with laughter and small adventures. Weekends spent wandering city streets, holding hands, and exploring hidden bookshops. Late-night conversations over cups of tea that turned into sunrise hours. Talking about dreams, fears, and the endless possibilities of the future. Those were the days when love felt effortless, and every glance, every touch, was a quiet reminder that they were meant to be together. Yet life had a way of complicating things. Work demands, family responsibilities, and the slow accumulation of everyday stress had gradually drawn invisible lines between them. It wasn't anything dramatic, no arguments or betrayals, but the subtle erosion of time had created a gentle distance. Emily often felt it, even in the quietest moments, the way James sometimes seemed lost in thought. The way she occasionally found herself talking to him and hearing only polite replies. It was nothing they could blame, but something they both carried silently, like a quiet ache they never fully named. Walking along the tree-lined path behind their house, Emily's mind drifted back to one particular evening memory that had stayed with her over the years. It was their first anniversary. James had surprised her with a small picnic at the same park they had visited on their first date. They had sat on a worn blanket under the old oak tree, sharing sandwiches and juice boxes, laughing about everything and nothing. Emily remembered the way he had looked at her then. Eyes bright, heart open, a mixture of admiration and awe. He had whispered, "I never want to take any moment with you for granted." And she had believed him with every fiber of her being. It was memories like these that reminded Emily why she loved James so deeply. Their connection had always been built on quiet gestures, holding hands in the rain, leaving notes on the kitchen counter, making each other tea just the way the other liked it. These small, seemingly ordinary moments had woven the fabric of their love. And yet, there had also been moments left unsaid, wishes kept hidden, and fears quietly tucked away. Emily stole a glance at James as he walked beside her now. His gaze drifted toward the horizon, thoughtful, almost wistful. She remembered the time he had confessed late one winter night, that he sometimes felt he wasn't enough, not for her, not for life itself. She had held him through that fear, whispering that he was more than enough, more than he knew. But life had continued, and those fears had never completely disappeared. They lingered beneath the surface, subtle but persistent, shaping the quiet spaces between them as they rounded a corner. They passed the small park where they had first kissed a shy, tentative moment on a warm spring evening when the world seemed to pause just for them. Emily's chest tightened at the memory. That kiss hadn't been about passion. It had been about trust, about the unspoken promise that they would face life together. It had been the moment she first realized she wanted more than just love from James. She wanted to be part of his world, completely and without reservation. James broke the silence, his voice soft, almost hesitant. "Do you remember this place?" Emily smiled, a wistful warmth spreading through her. "Of course," she said. "How could I forget? It was the beginning of everything." He nodded, eyes fixed on the small wooden bench where they had sat that night. "I've been thinking a lot about those days," he admitted. "About how simple things felt. How easy it was to just be happy together." Emily reached for his hand. "It hasn't disappeared," she said gently. "It's still here. Maybe we just need to remember it." The day had begun with ordinary quiet, the kind that blankets a house in stillness before the world stirs fully awake. Emily and James had spent the morning preparing, not knowing exactly what the day would bring, but feeling an unusual anticipation. There was a gentle electricity in the air, the kind that comes when something small, seemingly insignificant, has the power to change everything. It started with a phone call, an unexpected coincidence that neither of them could have predicted. Emily had been tidying the living room when her phone buzzed. It was a call from an old friend who had moved across the country years ago. "Emily, you won't believe this, but I'm in town for the day. Can we meet?" She laughed softly to herself. But the moment of joy faded quickly as she glanced at James. He was leaning against the doorway, watching her with a quiet curiosity. His usual morning restlessness softened by something she couldn't quite name. "Do you want to go?" she asked him, feeling the tug of unease mixed with excitement. James shook his head. "No, stay if you want. I think I'd like to take a walk. Clear my head." Emily hesitated, sensing that this wasn't just a casual stroll. There was a depth to his words, a longing she recognized all too well. She nodded, leaving him space, and grabbed her jacket. Outside, the crisp air carried a hint of autumn leaves crunching underfoot. The world felt unusually vivid, the sunlight brighter, the sound sharper, as though fate itself had decided to highlight the day for them. James led her along the familiar path to the nearby park, where the trees had already begun to turn golden. Emily noticed how he walked a little slower today, as if savoring each step, each moment, each detail. Her heart responded instinctively, remembering all the times they had wandered together in years past, the same park, the same paths, yet always discovering something new. They reached a small clearing near a pond, where the water reflected the sky like a mirror. A family of ducks paddled quietly along the edge, and the gentle rustle of leaves whispered in the breeze. Emily felt a pang of emotion, realizing how often they had walked here in silence, each moment filled with unspoken feelings, small acts of affection, and the quiet understanding that sometimes words weren't necessary. James stopped at the edge of the pond, watching his reflection ripple in the water. Emily remained beside him, her fingers brushing lightly against his. He didn't pull away, and she felt the connection rekindle instantly, the bond they had always shared, now glowing more brightly in the present. "I used to come here when I needed to think," James said quietly, breaking the gentle hush. "Before life got so busy, before everything got in the way." Emily nodded, sensing the unspoken layers beneath his words, the longing, the quiet regrets, the wish to feel grounded again. "I remember," she said softly, "and I think maybe we both forgot how important it is to just be here. Right now." He glanced at her then, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. His eyes reflected the same warmth and care she had first fallen in love with. It's the same gentleness that had drawn her in so many years ago. Emily's chest swelled with emotion, a mixture of relief, hope, and a tender longing she hadn't fully realized she was still carrying. As they walked along the pond, a small wind gust scattered leaves across the path, and James instinctively reached to steady one of them in his hand. It was such a simple gesture, yet it spoke volumes. Emily felt her heart thump in her chest. This was the moment, small, ordinary, yet profound, that reminded her of the man she loved, the man who had been quietly waiting for this day as much as she had. "Emily," James began, his voice low, almost hesitant, "I've been holding on to something for a long time. Something I didn't even know how to say today. Today feels like the right time." Emily's breath caught. She knew this was more than a casual confession. It was a crack in the walls they had both built over time, an invitation to reconnect fully, honestly, and without fear. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. James took a deep breath, turning to face her completely. "I've missed this. I've missed us. The quiet moments, the laughter, the way everything felt. Possible? I don't want to forget it again. Not now, not ever." Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but they were tears of gratitude and love, not sadness. She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "Neither do I," she said softly. "I've missed it too. I've missed you, for the first time in months, perhaps years." They truly saw each other beyond responsibilities, beyond routines, beyond the small misunderstandings that had slowly built a distance between them. They saw the people they had always been beneath the surface, the dreamers, the lovers, the friends who had chosen each other every day as they stood there. Hand in hand, a single red leaf drifted down and landed between them. It felt almost symbolic, a reminder that life moved forward, that beauty existed in fleeting moments, and that love could always find a way to resurface, even after it seemed buried beneath the weight of the world. James smiled, and Emily mirrored it, a shared understanding passing between them. This day, born from a simple wish, had already begun to reignite something that neither time nor circumstance could diminish, a bond built on trust, care, and the quiet, enduring power of love. And in that small, ordinary park, a small, extraordinary truth became clear. Sometimes, fate doesn't arrive with grand gestures or dramatic events. Sometimes, it arrives quietly in the gentle nudges of coincidence, the shared memories that linger in the heart, and the moments that remind you why you chose each other in the first place. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting a warm, golden glow across the park. Emily and James sat side by side on a weathered bench, the soft rustle of leaves above them creating a gentle, natural soundtrack. Though they were close, neither spoke immediately. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, was charged with all the words they had left unspoken for months. Perhaps years. Emily traced her fingers lightly along the edge of the bench, trying to find the courage to say what she had been feeling. She wanted to tell him how lonely the past few months had felt, how she had longed for his presence, for the easy conversations and quiet laughter that had once been their lifeline. But the words caught in her throat. What if she was wrong? What if he didn't feel the same way? James, meanwhile, stared at the pond in front of them, the water catching the last glimmers of sunlight. He wanted to tell Emily everything he hadn't been able to voice, the fears, the small regrets, the quiet longing for days when life had felt simpler. He wanted her to know that despite the distance that had grown, his love had never wavered. Yet something held him back. Vulnerability was a double-edged sword, and admitting how much he had missed her made him feel both fragile and exposed. Finally, Emily broke the silence, her voice soft but steady. "James, do you ever feel like we drifted?" She hesitated, searching his face for a hint of his thoughts. James took a deep breath, his fingers tightening slightly around the edge of the bench. "Yes," he admitted quietly, "but not in the way you might think. I've never stopped caring. I've never stopped loving you. But I've been scared, I think. Scared that I wouldn't know how to fix it if something went wrong. Scared that life had changed us too much." Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. His words mirrored her own fears, the ones she hadn't voiced. She reached for his hand, gently holding it in hers. "I've been scared too," she whispered. "Scared that the love we had, the connection we shared, was slipping away. But sitting here with you now, I feel it again. I feel us." James turned to her then, finally meeting her gaze. There was something raw and open in his eyes, a vulnerability that stripped away the hesitations they had both carried for so long. "I've missed this," he said softly. "Not just the big moments, Emily. The little ones. The mornings, the walks, the quiet smiles we shared without even realizing it. I've missed being fully seen by you." Her heart ached with longing. And she realized how much she had yearned for exactly that feeling, the knowledge that she was seen. Truly seen by the person she loved most. She let her fingers linger in his. And the simple touch seemed to speak volumes more than any words could. "I've missed it too," she said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "I've missed you. And not just your presence. I've missed the feeling of us, the way we used to be before life became so loud and complicated." James nodded, a small, almost shy smile forming on his lips. I think we both let the noise of life drown out the quiet things that mattered most. But being here today, it's reminded me of how simple love can be, how it doesn't need grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it just needs attention, care, time spent together. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief and joy. Time. Yes, I think that's what I've been longing for. Just time with you. To remember us, to feel us again. For a long moment they sat in silence, letting the weight of their emotions settle between them. There was no rush, no pressure, just the quiet acknowledgement of the feelings they had been too afraid to express. The air around them seemed warmer somehow, carrying the promise of reconnectation. James finally spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "Emily, I've kept so many things inside thinking they didn't matter. But every time I saw you smile, or laughed with you, or held your hand, I realized those things matter more than any." The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the branches of the trees, casting long shadows along the path where Emily and James walked. Each step seemed deliberate, as if they were moving through a space suspended outside of Tima Place where only the two of them existed, free from the noise of schedules, obligations, and the unspoken tensions of everyday life. James had been quieter than usual, his mind clearly occupied with thoughts he hadn't yet voiced. Emily sensed it immediately, the subtle shift in his posture, the way his hands fidgeted slightly at his sides. She kept pace with him, heart pounding in anticipation. She didn't need to ask. Something important was about to happen, something that would change the course of their day, and perhaps their lives. They reached a small wooden bridge overlooking the pond, where the water shimmered with the reflection of the sky. It was the same bridge they had crossed years ago during a spring morning stroll. The memory was vivid in Emily's mind. She remembered how James had paused there then, eyes soft, a shy smile on his face. As if the world had stopped just for that moment, now standing in the same spot. Emily felt the weight of all the unspoken words between them pressed gently against her. James stopped mid-step and turned toward her. For a moment he looked as though he might walk away, but then he drew in a deep breath, his shoulders squaring with determination. "Emily," he said softly, I can't keep this inside anymore." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for this moment, sensing it might come, yet the anticipation made her chest ache. "What is it?" she asked gently, though her voice betrayed the hope she felt. He stepped closer, the sunlight catching the glint of emotion in his eyes. "I've been carrying so much with me for months," he began. "Little fears, little regrets, things I didn't say because I didn't want to worry you. But the truth is, I've missed you. I've missed us. And not just the easy parts, not just the laughter and the smiles. I've missed the quiet, the simple moments that made life feel full." Emily felt tears gather in her eyes, the words hitting her like a wave she hadn't known she was waiting for. She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "James, I've felt the same," she whispered. "I've missed you too. Every day. Even when we were together, I felt something missing. Something I couldn't name. But being here now, I feel it again. I feel us." He nodded, relief and vulnerability mingling in his expression. "It's more than just missing you," he admitted. "It's the realization that life is too short to hold back, too short to leave feelings unsaid. I don't want another day to go by without knowing that I've told you what's in my heart, that I've reminded you that I love you truly, deeply, completely." Emily's chest tightened. a mixture of longing, love, and gratitude swelling inside her. She could feel the emotion in his words as if it were a physical presence wrapping around her heart. "I needed to hear that," she said softly. "I needed to know that we still have each other, that our bond hasn't weakened, even when life got in the way." James smiled, a small, vulnerable smile that spoke of years of unspoken emotions finally finding their voice. "We've built so much together, Emily. Memories, dreams, quiet mornings, and ordinary nights that meant everything. And I don't want to take any of it for granted anymore. I want to be fully present, fully open, fully with you." Emily's eyes glistened with tears, but this time they were tears of hope and joy, not sorrow. "I want that too, James," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion in her chest. "I want us to remember why we fell in love, to cherish the little things again, to make time for each other without distractions, without fear, without hesitation." A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it the subtle scent of fallen leaves and earth, as if nature itself were witnessing this moment of truth. James took her hand fully in his, lifting it to his lips in a gentle, reverent gesture. "Emily," he said, "can we promise to never let life make us forget this? To never let the ordinary overshadow what's truly extraordinary what we have?" Emily's smile was soft but certain, her heart pounding with certainty. "Yes," she said, leaning in slightly, letting the warmth of their closeness sink in. "We promise. And I'll spend every day reminding you and myself that what we have is worth protecting, worth celebrating, worth loving every single day." The bridge, the pond, the golden light around them, it all seemed to pause in perfect harmony, reflecting the magnitude of their emotions. This was more than words, more than promises. It was a turning point, a moment where hesitation and unspoken longing finally gave way to clarity and commitment. James exhaled, a mixture of relief and joy flooding his expression. "I feel lighter," he said softly, "as if a weight I didn't even realize I was carrying has finally lifted." Emily squeezed his hand, feeling the same release. "Me too," she admitted. "And I think this is the start of something even stronger. A reminder that we can face life together, honestly, openly, and with our hearts fully in it." As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of rose and gold, they stayed on the bridge, hand in hand, letting the warmth of their love settle between them. The turning point had arrived not through grand gestures or dramatic events, but through truth, courage, and the quiet revelation of feelings that had waited patiently for the right moment to surface in that moment. Emily and James understood that love was not just about being together, it was about seeing each other, understanding each other, and choosing each other again every single day. And today, they had chosen each other with the sky had shifted into evening hues, soft shades of amber and lavender blending above the horizon. Emily and James walked slowly along the familiar path that led back to their home, hand in hand. Each step felt deliberate, carrying with it the weight of their shared emotions from the day. There was no rush, no urgency, just a gentle sense of completeness, as though the world itself had slowed to honor the moment they had reclaimed together. Emily glanced at James, noticing the calm ease in his posture. There had been tension in the past months, a subtle distance neither had spoken aloud, but today had changed that. Today, through quiet conversations, shared memories, and the courage to express what had long been unspoken, they had rediscovered the bond that had first brought them together. It wasn't dramatic or flashy, it was quiet, profound, and enduring. "You know," James began softly, his voice carrying the faintest hint of awe, "I didn't realize how much I needed this day until we were in it. Just being together, really together, without distractions. It's like I've remembered pieces of myself I had forgotten." Emily smiled, squeezing his hand gently. "I know exactly what you mean. I feel the same way. It's not about the perfect plans or grand gestures. It's about the little moments we've shared today. The quiet walks, the memories we revisited, the things we finally said out loud. Those are the moments I'll carry with me forever." They paused for a moment near the garden. It's the same spot where Emily had once planted flowers as a symbol of their growing life together. The blooms swayed gently in the evening breeze, petals catching the soft light as if nodding in agreement. Emily reached out to brush a few petals between her fingers. "Do you remember when we planted these?" she asked, her voice tinged with nostalgia. James nodded, a small smile forming. "I do. You made me promise we'd care for them together, and I never forgot. They've grown because of us, just like our love." Emily felt a warmth in her chest, a gentle reassurance that the foundation they had built was strong enough to withstand life's distractions. Today had been more than a simple wish fulfilled, it had been a turning point. A reminder that love didn't have to be grand to be meaningful. It just had to be present, acknowledged, and cherished. As they walked the final steps toward their home, Emily and James reflected on the day in quiet gratitude. They had shared laughter, revisited cherished memories, and, most importantly, expressed truths they had long kept hidden. The simple act of speaking their hearts had lifted burdens neither had fully realized they carried. Once inside, James poured them both cups of tea, the warmth from the mugs complementing the glow of the soft lamplight. They settled on the sofa, still holding hands, the quiet hum of the evening wrapping around them. Emily rested her head against his shoulder, and James leaned in slightly, a comfortable, familiar closeness that spoke of trust and understanding. "You know," Emily said after a moment, "I think this day has shown me something important. That we don't have to wait for special occasions or big events to remember how much we mean to each other. We can create moments like this whenever we choose." James nodded, his gaze distant for a moment, reflective. "You're right. Life will always be busy, and challenges will come. But what we have, what we've rebuilt today, it's ours, and we can protect it, nurture it, and grow it, no matter what." Emily smiled softly, feeling the depth of truth in his words. "Then let's promise to keep remembering. To keep choosing each other every day, even in the small ways, the little gestures, the quiet conversations, the walks, the laughter. Those are the moments that matter most." James squeezed her hand, his eyes glinting with emotion. "I promise," he said, voice steady. "Every day. And I'll do everything I can to make sure you know just how much you mean to me." The room was farts fully open, ready to embrace the connection they had almost let slip away.